I went to protests where I met fellow travelers who felt the same. We heard our voices being heard by one another. We became part of the spectacle of sight and sound, of tumult. The world burned even harder. I don't believe the registration of our discontent was useless. Recording our dismay was and continues to be very important. But it is not enough to stop the fires we see all around us. They have now turned into infernos. Look at them now as we walk. See them in the near distance, that one scorching through public works, through healthcare, through education. See it turning those institutions into husks. The other one racing up hillsides on dry grass, turning our earth into an overused fuel source. What about the ones sealing off borders and turning them into stripes of ash? The ones converting our wetlands and unusable landscapes into deserts, into ruins, into development zones. The ones destroying our sense of privacy. Nothing is more naked than a house after a fire. We are living in such a house. We are standing in it looking out. The other great price to the vigilance we've kept has been a reduction in our capacities. As if all we possess is the ability to resist, to say no, to register our disagreement, our distrust, our disgust, our dislike, our contempt, and our scorn. We are banding together into tribes of unshakable belief as a result of this notion, thanks in part to the technology with which we register our shouted disputes. Sometimes, under the greatest forms of control, this right is taken from us too. Some of us are not even allowed to speak, to go online or step into a public square and see who shares our resistance. What if a storm is not the correct metaphor, though? I have been speaking symbolically, so why not be specific? We are living through one of the greatest transfers of wealth in human history, of assets and money, of labor and its value, and the force that is required to continue this transfer, to make its consolidation of resources permanent, has now reached a critical level. An imbalance of power so flagrant requires violence. The beneficiaries of this situation have begun to label as fungible certain human beings. They have begun trumpeting fantasies of purity, which is what nationalism is, fundamentally. Ultimately, these fantasies lead to wars, which is what humans resort to when they abandon reason or know something is unfair. Change instituted by force. It has already led to armed resistance. War is what humans turn to when their cries of pain are ultimately no longer heard. What if the story as I've been telling it above is wrong, though? What if all this is merely a passing fever? What if it is more like a curse? What if it is a possession? What if our leaders are not blind and instead know precisely what they are doing, and our disquiet comes from this sneaking awareness? Doubt, our friend in times of confusion, has turned against us, inspiring paranoia. We are experiencing all this confusion. Maybe what needs to be told isn't a story at all, but a kind of long psalm, a litany of mourning, of species grief. This book is an attempt to ask these questions. The main ones it will pose are three. What if our capacity to imagine has been so badly damaged by the information climate of our times that destruction is all we can see? What if deforming our ability to imagine the present is precisely what governments and power systems do to control us? And what if I told you we have the power to change this? I believe we do. To seize this power requires a radical change in perspective, however. To do so, we need to take one tool being vandalized before our very eyes, language, and reclaim it, and redefine what it means to be an ethical citizen in the present moment. We do not need to hunt the terms that have been weaponized into nonsense. We need to grab the words that have possibility in them and begin using them anew. Using these words expansively, carefully, and with the full extent of their meaning, even if it is first in our heads, will ultimately lead to action. I had this revelation in the spring, a year into the long crisis that is the present moment in the United States, many years into the unfolding crises that are affecting most of the countries around the world. After my